Hi, and welcome to Filmmakers Compass Podcast, a show where we talk about movies and, well, more movies. I'm D-Man, joined by CP, who
I'm
is
CP.
looking extravagant with your Santa hat on. Very jolly.
Well, dude, it is Christmas time and we got to get in the season. D-Man, however, cannot get in the season because he is actually traveling.
Well, so we kind of note at the top of this podcast that I am actually in South Carolina, Charleston, to be specific. And I'm out here for work. So I got to give a big shout out to my work for sending me out here. I've never been to Charleston, South Carolina. And I just got here maybe like 4 hours ago. So I just ate dinner at the hotel and now I'm podcasting. But I'm excited. Hopefully get to explore the city a little bit, see what Charleston has to offer, and then obviously get a bunch of work done. But so we'll see. I'm not even really 100% sure where to go, although I do have to give a huge shout out to Anthony Morales. Appreciate you giving me some recommendations here, which I'm right near the battleship, so I'm probably going to be able to check that out. And then I'm going to go across the bridge to downtown, and he gave me some recommendations on some breweries and some restaurants. So really appreciate that.
Dude, nice. Pretty dope.
So yeah, on that note, also want to give a shout out to one of my good friends, Luciana. It was her birthday, so happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
I have a few more shout outs. The first one is Caroline Marie actually messaged us on Instagram and said, I posted this for my sister-in-law. She was a booth there, didn't actually go. So I know you know the context for this.
I do.
If you want to explain it a little bit.
No.
Okay. No context needed. That is hers. Now, here's one that really stabbed me in the heart. Sam Vargas commented, "Great job, CP. Have been enjoying the podcast, but no mention of D-Man." So,
Sam boy, thank you, man. I'm glad you've been enjoying the show. We enjoy listening.
Sam used to listen to an older podcast I was on called Indecisive by Choice, which was a lot of fun. And funny story about Sam is that he was referred to on that podcast as Sam Boy because he worked with Matt Helson, who was one of our good friends. And apparently there was a Sam Boy and Sam Girl at that office. So he was affectionately referred to as Sam Boy, although he claims he's all man. You know, I don't know.
Well, on this podcast, Sam, I think we should call him Sam Man or Sam the Man. I'm okay with that.
Sam, you let us know what nickname you want on this show because we'll call you whatever you want. Appreciate you listening, though, man. And lastly, I got to give a big shout out to myself because I feel like an adult here in South Carolina. I actually unpacked my suitcase. I hung up my clothes. Yeah, like my toothbrush is actually like neatly next to the sink in the bathroom. And that never happens. Usually I just throw my bag next to my bed and hit the bar. But I'm here by myself. So it's not, I don't know. The bar's not that fun when you're alone.
I don't know who should be more excited, your mom or your wife. So one of them raised you right.
Yeah. Hope you guys are listening, though. So if you are, leave me a comment. But aside from that, it is a pretty nice hotel. I'm staying at the Embassy Suites by Hilton. So shout out to those guys. Here was something they did for me, though. It's pretty dope. When I checked in, they gave me six free alcoholic drink tickets. So I might have to hit the bar.
I think
what are you going to do? I can't waste them.
Yeah, that would be wasted. And this is the season of giving, so you should not be wasting.
Yeah, or at least give them away. Yeah, you know. I'm like, that's hilarious. So anyway, yeah, pretty sweet hotel. I'm excited to be here. CP, do you have any shout outs on this episode?
Just want to give a shout out to everybody who participated in our Twitter poll last week. We asked what movie you were watching to commemorate Pearl Harbor.
Oh yeah, that's
on December 7th. And it was actually the two top choices were the film Midway and Pearl Harbor, which
Michael Bay.
Well, kind of blows me away because, well, as Team America taught us, Pearl Harbor sucks just a little bit more than I Miss You. So Yeah.
Well played. I do. I mean, here's the thing though. If you watch the movie Pearl Harbor, and you really, I know some people were in it for like the sappy love story, but let's face it. I mean, Michael Bay and the special effects team did deliver on the action, of which Pearl Harbor is known for. So, like all war movies, there is a certain amount of, you know, honor and taste that needs to go into those scenes, and you don't, really make it about the, special effects and gravitas. But I mean, let's face it looked good.
No, it definitely did. And it's actually kind of crazy because there have now been a couple of movies that have really looked at Pearl Harbor over the years and have had really cinematic takes on it. Actually brings me to the other poll that we did not talk about last week, which was we put up a poll on Instagram whether you liked me with my long hair or my short hair better. And I was quite blown away that overwhelmingly everybody liked me with the short hair. So apparently guys just thought I looked like a hippie bum. So thank you for,
I don't know, long hair. I've had long hair in the past, and it's one of those things where, like, obviously you're just going to rock it. But at the same time, I mean, it is a kind of very specific look. There's things associated with guys with long hair, right? Rock stars, 80s. That sounds awesome.
No, it actually is. I thought it was very funny, though, and this is what I wanted to specifically bring up. So 73% of our listening audience said they liked the short hair better. 8% said they liked the long hair better. But the really interesting was the 18% that said they never liked me to begin with. So shout out to Steven. Thanks, a-hole.
Oh, that's awesome. Well played.
Anyway, so I don't
it.
have any shout outs on that. Thank you everyone for participating. Obviously, when we do polls and stuff, we love it when you let us know your thoughts, and yeah, keep it up.
Well, as CP's hat clearly shows, we are still in the Christmas season. So in honor of that, we are going to do a movie remake time this week, something we were both kind of excited about. And I'm really excited to hear what your opinion was, because I saw the movie first, then you saw it. So I wanted to know what you thought. I'll throw it over to you.
All right. So are you ready for it?
Intro time, baby.
Welcome to Movie Remake Time, the show where we take a look at sequels, reboots, and remakes and ask the very simple question, who did it better? This week, we are going to be talking about, well, everybody except for D-Man's sisters' very favorite Christmas classic, A Christmas Story, and
amazing
the new sequel, A Christmas Story, Christmas.
All right. I'm going to let you actually go first here, because I'm really interested in what you thought of it.
Well, first things first. Check this out, dude. That's actually the original 80s box VHS tape.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and look, it's so old it has one of those.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, actually.
Is he in the bunny suit?
Grandpa's house. Yeah, he's on the bunny suit. Isn't that dope?
Why is there a dog? Is that like one of the Bumpus's dogs?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what it's supposed to be.
The Parkers didn't have a dog, right?
No. It was the Bumpus's had 997 smelly hound dogs. So okay. If you've ever listened to us talk about Christmas or movies or anything, you know that both D-Man and I really love the original Christmas movie from Bob Clark, based off of the novel by this guy, Gene Shepherd. One of our favorite holiday movies and an immediate classic, upon seeing it, as a audience member, you can't help but kind of fall in love with it. So when I heard that they were going to do a sequel, I was not happy. I thought it was going to be horrific. I did not want to see it. I thought it was a typical example of, this is a quick cash grab. Let's mess with a good thing when we really don't need to. And I mean, the crazy thing is there have already been 2 official sequels before this to A Christmas Story. There is,
and neither was good.
No. Yeah, there's from the 90s a film called My Summer Story, which has a new cast and is supposed to be set as a sequel to A Christmas Story, based off of some of the vignettes that Gene Shepherd wrote. And it takes place in the summertime, over summer vacation. Then there is from the 2000s, A Christmas Story 2, which might be in the running for one of the worst films ever made. Actually, Mar from Home Alone is the dad in this case, plays the old man,
Yeah.
and it does not work. Um, so when I heard that they were revisiting it, I was really skeptical. D-Man saw it first, and well, you brought up your thoughts, but I was quite impressed that this movie kept the spirit of A Christmas Story alive. And I'll let you take over from there.
Yeah, I think the first thing I would note is as a sequel, I always ask the question, is there a reason for this to be made? And they do a good job of addressing that as a sequel. It's not just a carbon copy update of A Christmas Story. They actually have a cool storytelling mechanism, cool and sad, which is the death of a parent. So unfortunately, that ends up being the catalyst for this story, but it's also something that every one of us is either dealt with already or will have to deal with at some point in our lives. It's a very relatable thing.
Totally true.
And how do you, right, especially if whether it's a vacation or whatever, holiday event that this person loved, how do you live up to, kind of the standards that they had set for those things? And in this case, it's the old man and Christmas. And so I think as a storytelling mechanism, the sequel works really well because it's not a carbon copy of A Christmas Story. Instead, I'd actually argue that the story itself, because it follows Ralphie as an adult with his wife and two kids going back to Indiana to deal with the death of the old man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what he has to do is put on Christmas in, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 days
Mm-hmm.
and try to, kind of live up to the old man. And in that regard, I think the movie itself actually plays a little bit closer to something like Christmas Vacation. In that movie, Chevy Chase, Clark Griswold is, he wants to throw an old fashioned family Christmas, you know, and he wants to basically, through nostalgia and his love of the holidays, kind of pass that on to his family and share that with them. Well, in this case, the story structure may line up similar to that, but it's just dealing with something that I think is relatable. It definitely evokes emotion out of you. I know there's a scene at the beginning of the movie where Ralphie gets a phone call, and I had no idea that was coming.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because honestly, I hadn't seen any trailers for this movie. I just knew it was coming out, and my expectations were like yours, probably very low. I didn't think much of it. So for me, that's a criteria. We've talked about that many times, when it comes to sequels. Does this have a reason for existing? Like if you've never seen A Christmas Story but saw this, is it still enjoyable, or was it simply just made for people that were fans? Well, in this case, I think it holds up pretty well on its own.
No, absolutely. And I think part of it is this film was directed by Clay Klinkus and written by Nick Schenk. And obviously, both of them had a large amount of reverence for the original story. You can tell that they love it. And this is not an attempt to recreate A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
There's a great amount of respect and homage given to the original story as Ralphie goes back home and remembers his childhood and the best Christmas he ever had. Um, but we're not trying to beat for beat recreate A Christmas Story. The other thing I think that is really important in the film is the decision to acknowledge the passing of the old man. I actually think it very much keeps it in the spirit of the original, just in the sense that this movie, A Christmas Story, is at its heart a story of Ralphie and his relationship with his father. But through the passing of his father and Ralphie going
Yeah.
home and dealing with Christmas without his father, it's actually almost, despite the fact that Darren McGavin had passed away, almost 15 years ago, it's a way to keep the character alive. And he still feels like an integral part of the story because as an audience, we are very much aware of his absence from the film. And so by them outright acknowledging the fact that he has passed, we as an audience are going through the same sort of grieving and fondly remembering of the character that Ralphie is. And I think that that's kind of a cool story decision that they made, as opposed to just a throwaway line about, oh, dad passed away 5 years ago and Christmas hasn't been the
Yeah.
same.
I totally agree with you on that. I think, and that was the biggest thing that I was just worried about with
Mm-hmm.
that as a sequel was I was like, is there going to be a good enough reason for this movie to even exist?
Yeah.
And I actually thought they handled it well. They never really go through the entire grieving process. You know, they don't actually spend time on like the funeral or anything like that, but you do see how the old man loomed large over the holidays and how his passing, you know, kind of affects everybody.
Yeah,
So I thought that
exactly.
worked really well. The other thing I thought worked well was they give Ralphie or Ralph, they give him, you know, he's an adult now. They give him some narrative motion. He is trying to finish out a year off of trying to become a writer.
Yeah.
And I think it's just enough to not just be like, hey, we're home for the holidays. Like, let's
Mm-hmm.
make a movie. You know, he has enough. He's trying to figure out his voice as a writer throughout and how do you find your voice. Um, Things like that. And I think
Yeah.
the movie again does a good job of he's obviously the central character of both the original and the new one. And in that case, it's just, you know, that childhood dream of wanting your ultimate Christmas present,
Yeah.
you know, and how do I ensure that this happens? Well, in this case, it's, you know, kind of a more adult, well, it's definitely more adult. It's about a job, but like it's that stress and that worry that comes with, you know, whether, you know, in this case it's getting published or but any of us, you know, I want the job or whatever. I think we've all been there where, you know, you want something. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's good character motion.
Yeah.
Um, because we can again we can relate to that. We've all wanted the job or we've all, you know, wanted something, but not in that innocent childhood way like, oh, I, you know, I just got to get word to Santa, you know, so I can, you know, get pleasure. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you know, he's trying to do something a little bit more adult here. And I think that's another thing that the movie does really well is it gives us a perspective not of the children,
Yeah.
right? I think a Christmas story is from a child's eyes as told by, you know, one's older
But
self.
it's about getting the best Christmas gift he's ever had, right?
Right.
Whereas this
And
is him as a father trying to give his kids the best Christmas he possibly could. You
and I
know,
thought, yeah, I thought that all actually worked.
I
So,
agree.
and like you said, the film itself does a great job of also paying homage, but not recreating any of very specific moments from the original. And to that end, right, like they do a pan through the attic and you see some of the, you know, just things. I think Ralphie even throws like the pink bunny costume.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know, those things are still there, but they don't, you know, they're not getting into it. And they do it in the right way. It's not like when, oh, you don't know, but here's the Star Wars reference. It's not like when Luke throws his lightsaber away in The Last Jedi and also throws out everybody's love of Star Wars, where you're like, what are you doing though? Like, you know,
Yeah.
here it's a little bit of like, hey, you know, I remember when that happened, but like good riddance, bunny costume.
Yeah. Or in the same way, they reinvoke moments such as, you know, Ralphie's in the car and it breaks down, much like in the original when they get a flat. Or there's a scene where he takes his kids to pick out a Christmas tree and he teaches them, you know, what his dad taught him about bartering and talking people down and getting a tree for the lowest price you can. So it has reverence for the original and it ties back these memories, but it's not a cheap recreation. And I think that that's the balance.
Yeah. And I like that too, because I think they took each of those scenes and they added a slight twist.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think the Christmas tree scene is a great example, where like his dad haggles and, you know, he's like, you got a deal. Like, you know, I won, you know, in this
Mm-hmm.
case,
Mm-hmm.
Ralph believes that he won, but really he lost. He got
Yeah.
to, you know, the
Yeah.
guys at the lot got him to take the giant tree that nobody was going to get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you know, it's just, I don't know, that type of like twist on certain things. It's fun because it's, again, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
So I thought that worked. I liked the introduction of the new characters, his
Um,
wife, his kids,
mm-hmm.
but also they bring back a lot of the original cast. the actual actors
reprising the roles that they played, 30 something years ago. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, his friends are back. Scud Farkus is back. I mean, I think, is it Flick? He
Flick and
owns a
Schwartz.
bar.
Flick owns a
Yeah.
bar. And actually, it was really cool because if you notice, when they pan across behind the bar in Flick's bar, he actually says, "In God we trust, all others pay cash," which is a homage to the actual book, which I think is cool.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. And so that was cool, like getting to see them all kind of come back together. But again, with like that and that adult twist, he owns a bar. They go and get drunk. They have, they're doing grown up things, not childhood things anymore, where they're triple dog daring each other on the playground. Even though we get a sense of that.
Yep.
But what is it to do? Clear a bar tab.
Very true. Very true.
So something interesting that I heard about this, I was reading about it. Apparently they did. So, the actual house from A Christmas Story is in, I think, Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah. And it's on Cleveland Street in the movie, but it's in Indiana. And Cleveland Street is a reference to the location of where the actual house was.
Yeah.
Well, that house is still there. And I guess you can go and tour it. It might even actually be for sale. I think I saw. I thought
it was like a Christmas Story museum or something.
Yeah, something like that. Well, anyway, they did not film at that house. They actually rebuilt that entire street and house on a closed set. I want to say it was in like a foreign country or something. Wow. And that's how they did it. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, they didn't actually film at the house, which I was like, oh, I figured they would. But
I mean, that's what you'd think, because wouldn't if you have the original location still, but I don't know, maybe it's changed too much. Maybe the neighborhood looks too different. Maybe the house isn't,
Yeah.
I assume they only used it for the exteriors anyway.
I know, yeah. I'm sure everything inside the house was a set somewhere, probably on a Hollywood studio. You walk outside, it's not Christmas, it's 96 degrees.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think the other question I think I wanted to bring up with you, and I'm interested what your thoughts are on this. So if you look at the way the story plays out, so Ralph fails in his mission to get published for his, sci-fi epic, right? He's trying to be a sci-fi writer, and 25 publishers turned him down.
Yep.
But he ends up finding his voice by writing about the old man. And as is often the case, people tell you, draw on your life experiences. That's where you're going to find things that are relatable, that people understand. At the end of the movie, the way the structure is set up, he ends up reading the piece, and it almost leads right into Gene Shepard's voice as the original A Christmas Story opens up. My house on Cleveland Street, and it's Christmas. Is this a sequel or a prequel?
I think that was actually one of the really cool things that they achieved, because it's very a cyclical in nature, and I think you can see it as either way. I mean, seen as it came after the original, we have to say it's officially a sequel, but it is very much created as a prequel in the sense that, you could show your kids A Christmas Story Christmas, and then the next night show them A Christmas Story, and I think it all works. And I think that that's a really cool concept, because, whichever one you watch first doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the other one.
Yeah,
I don't think that's easily achieved.
If it was up to me, I mean, I think it would be a sequel. And that's because I think there are elements in the sequel that are a little bit more enjoying or heartbreaking if you were a fan of the original. But yeah, it's really neat because the way it ends is like, hey, the story that ended up making Ralph a published writer is his story about the old man and that unbelievable Christmas he had when he was a kid.
Yeah.
And then it actually, in a really neat way, they actually like pan out of like the house, the new one, the set, and then it actually fades into A Christmas Story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the music plays and the credits hit and they have like some cool side by side photos during the credits and stuff. But it was that was really neat to me because I was like, whoa, you guys made this really work. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. I thought it was great and I enjoyed it.
So that was definitely something that was pretty neat. I will say sequel though.
Yeah.
I think A Christmas Story Christmas is better if you like A Christmas Story.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Well,
that leads me to one point.
yes.
I do not think A Christmas Story Christmas was able to create its own sense of iconography, where I think the original one, there are so many things about A Christmas Story that you can just say to anybody and they know what they are. Red Rider's BB gun, you're going to shoot your eye out, kid.
I'll
You
triple
know,
dog dare you.
yeah, the tongue on the pole, the pink bunny suit, you know, Santa kicking him down the slide. Like there's
Yeah.
just so many things. And then, the old man yelling all the time, not a finger, the
Yeah.
leg lamp. And
Yep.
so I think the first one trumps this one hands down in just iconography. I mean, is there any, like, if you showed somebody a leg lamp, which inherently has no relatable value to Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows what it is, what it's from, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I just don't think this movie, they had a couple things. There was, Flick's bar. They have the ramp. Um, they do a couple things to try to add maybe to it, but I just don't think it lives up to.
No, I know what you mean in the sense that the first one has things that are instantly recognizable. There are lines that you will quote, and we have quoted for decades. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
but I
on it.
didn't say fudge.
Yeah, right. The only one I kind of that I find myself quoting since I saw the movie is the sequence where he is it's kind of he goes into his imagination after he throws a snowball at his daughter and hits her in the head.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then it's his son comes in and he's like, when they visit him in prison and he's all British and he's like, what
He's
happened
like
to
a
your
British punk
voice?
rocker.
Or what happened to your accent? Like, I was like, oh, that's funny. But yeah, it just doesn't have that sort of lasting impact that I think the original one does.
I did like that scene though, where it like they're just at Flick's bar, and then the phone rings, and all the bar patrons get scared, and then it's somebody's wife, and everybody's like, "Shh, don't say I'm here." And then they say, "Sorry, he's not here.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas," and like hang up, and they're all like, "Oh, thank God, we can keep drinking."
That's hilarious.
What did you think of Peter Billingsley, kind of reprising the role after all these years? Because he's obviously, a huge factor in both stories where I think everybody else truly is supporting,
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the older movie, except for the parents, but neither of those actors are here.
I mean, I thought it was great. Peter Billingsley is an actor, it seems like for the last 20 years, he's really kind of moved out of acting and has really just been a producer and a showrunner and, really involved as a, kind of an executive side of production. So I thought it was great that he was willing to come back. It was a very stark difference though, just in the sense that when we last saw Ralphie, he was, 9 years old.
Yeah.
This wasn't something like watching Boy Meets World where we saw Corey Matthews grow up over the course of,
Yeah, I get you.
six seasons, and now seeing adult Corey, we're like, okay, well, we've seen that transfer. Like it was a big age, age jump.
Yeah. And that's also Peter Billingsley doing the narration, the Gene Shepard role from the original.
Yeah.
Did you miss Gene Shepard?
I mean, his voice is so iconic in the original that it is. I think that no offense to Peter Billingsley, but it's not the same. And I think in some ways it kind of worked even better for the original one because you have Ralphie as a kid, talking like Ralphie, and then you have this adult with a different voice really showing you that this is someone telling a story, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And
That's cool.
it doesn't have quite that same effect as being, playing out like you're being told a story as the first one does.
Okay. Yeah, I thought he did a good job. I mean, I was a little bit surprised, but I kind of got the vibe, and maybe I'm wrong here, but that he was doing like a Gene Shepard impersonation when he was. But
It's
I
a
mean,
little
it kind of
deeper.
worked.
Yeah.
I thought it worked, and I think a good point is too that in this one, the narration is actually often describing like parenthood and what it's like to be parents and try to bring that magic to your kids. I think at one point, like their presents get stolen, and you hear his narration. He's like, the kids don't know though.
Yeah.
They don't know the presents were stolen.
Yeah.
I think they have a great line where everybody's decorating the tree, and then slowly like the adults start drinking wine and they're sitting on the couch watching, and they're like, oh, we're just watching you kids. And one of the daughters is like, isn't this like labor? And she's like, no. The mom's like, no, this isn't child labor if we don't pay you. And like I don't know, there was some good, and just the idea that, hey, how do I make this special?
Yeah.
I think every parent goes through that at some point.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Well, I would hope. I don't know. Say something. I think, one of my old co-hosts on the podcast I was talking about earlier, I mean, he should be here to tell this story because I don't want to throw his mom under the bus, but Michael Tacone, his one year his mom forgot to wrap his gifts, and they were just in a garbage bag in the closet. Oh, that's amazing.
Hashtag poor Mikey.
That was what a good story. I was dying when he told it. But besides the point. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to A Christmas Story Christmas, I do have to say that, did it work? In this case, it's not does it hold up or whatever. But did it work? I think it did.
Yeah. So I guess my question to you then is something like this. Obviously, about a year ago, we did a movie remake time where we looked at another quote unquote remake of A Christmas Story, which was 8-Bit Christmas, which came out, last year. I think we both came to the conclusion that 8-Bit Christmas does not work as well as the original.
Yeah.
Why does this seem, I mean, and maybe I'm just, I'll own this. In my opinion, A Christmas Story Christmas is a more faithful, in the spirit of A Christmas Story than 8-Bit Christmas. And it has nothing to do with the fact that one takes place in the 70s and the other takes place in the 80s, or, one has Neil Patrick Harris and the other has Peter Billings. It's nothing like that. One just seems truer to the spirit of the original than the other. Why do you think that is?
I do have to give a tip of the cap. I like 8-Bit Christmas. I think the thing though is that all you're ever going to do, because it's essentially the same kind of story mechanism, right? Kind of like going back to the beginning of this whole conversation. 8-Bit Christmas is really a Christmas story about a different childhood, dream present in the 80s with a different family. But it's the same. It even has Neil Patrick Harris narration, right? Like, although the only thing I guess that would be a major difference is they actually show the older version of whoever's talking, Neil Patrick Harris to his daughter.
True.
But again, if I had to pick what it is that really separates those two, I think it's the iconography. I think there's something so special about A Christmas Story, so unique in all of the things that we associate with it, that you can remake that story with a different family, with a different present, and it just never quite rises to that level.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, as great as, I love the 80s, and I actually had a Nintendo, and I remember playing in Indiana with my dad.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like one of those things where I think there's a gold standard there. And you'd really, really have to do something crazy using the same structure to surpass that.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So, but that's what's unique about A Christmas Story Christmas is I don't think it does that. It's not coming in here and saying like, hey, we're going to try to compete with the original. They're like, nah, the original is the original. Like we're just trying to do something a little bit different. And, kind of tell a different story about the same family.
Fair
And
enough.
that's why I think it works. And, it's relatable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a
Mm-hmm.
big thing too. What did you think about the scene with the carolers? Are you a caroler person?
I mean, I don't have a problem with carolers. There's not a lot of carolers in Southern California running around, singing. I do remember them in Indiana, though. It was a little weird. It felt a little out of place for. I mean, I understand that it was an attempt to create kind of one of those, Parker family traditions or Parker family, practices that we got to see. And, you know, I felt like is an attempt to do something like, you know, when the dad plugs in all the lights and blows the fuse, right? Something
Yeah.
like that, that a moment that we'd look to. I just don't think it landed in the same way as some of the original scenes did. It seemed a little out of place. Um,
Well, I think
oh,
too, I think part of it was I don't know how relatable it is. I don't think people either love or hate carolers. I don't think there's enough caroling. Like
that's a good
maybe if
point.
there were carolers all the time, I think that is something that is probably part of an older generation. I just don't see it a lot.
True. Yeah, that's a good
So
point.
yeah, if you're growing up today or you're around today, I don't think that now. So for people that were right in the whatever this is 60s 70s and grew up, okay, because I was born in 87, so if you were around, that might be way more relatable. But for me, it just wasn't that relatable.
For sure. Um, yeah, I didn't like that. The other thing that I think we need to acknowledge too, which we did not, and I think that it does relate to some of these things. A While most of the cast came back, Melinda Dillon did not,
Oh
and
yeah,
we have a new actress taking up the helm of a very iconic character who, people have been celebrating Christmas with for the last 35 years. So, what was your take on that?
I actually thought she did a pretty good job. And to that end, I mean, she didn't just do like a impression. I think sometimes people do that. Like I don't know if you saw the what is it like Many Saints of Newark, which is like a prequel to Sopranos, and they got some actors to play some of the younger versions of the characters, but they came across more as like the actors just doing their impression of,
Yeah,
where it's like, hey, a lot of time has passed. Like, you know, and so even though it is a different actress, I think by allowing her to kind of do something a little bit different, it works for me. And so what is she doing different? She's much more comical.
mm,
I felt that the character was written and acted in a way where it was kind of like, I'm older now.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
hey, we gotta, this is how we got, or like, I'm kind of down for whatever.
And I mean, let's be honest too. Julie Haggerty, who does play the mom in this role, she is a comedic actress. She was in Airplane. Most of you probably remember her as Chris's mom in the Ryan Reynolds film Just Friends. So
Oh yeah.
she is a little bit more of, I think, a comedic actress than Melinda Dillon was.
Yeah, then I think it works. I
Mm-hmm.
think the way the character is written for this story, I think it works pretty good. And like I said, I'm just not a huge fan of people doing just impressions of,
Yeah,
especially when you know a character is getting screen time.
yeah,
I think you need to own it. We all understand that the original actress isn't in this movie. I mean, that's fine.
yeah, yeah.
Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, other than that, I'm trying to think if there was, because the thing with sequels and especially holiday sequels, I mean, can you even name any that work?
Home Alone 2.
Yeah, maybe that
That's
one.
like the only one. I mean, most of them don't have sequels. There are the multiple Santa Clauses, and I mean, they're awful with the exception of the first one. So,
Well,
Home
and the thing
Alone.
about Home Alone, I think, it's funny because if you look at Home Alone 2, really all they do is just there's such a transportation of the setting. So instead of actually being in a house home alone, he's lost in, the biggest city in America
Yeah.
alone. And it's just so grand in the change. But if you actually look at the movie, I mean, it's almost beat for beat the
The
first one.
same. Yeah. No, absolutely.
They replay the same gags, right? He does the movie again.
Yep.
Um, he obviously sets a house full of booby traps. Like it literally is the same movie.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, and why does it work? I think Home Alone was just that popular at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and because everybody loved Macaulay Culkin.
Mm-hmm.
If you were a kid, you loved him. If you were an adult, you thought it was hilarious. You're like, oh, this guy knocked it out of the park. Can you imagine making Home Alone though? Or even for that matter, something, like A Christmas Story, where literally the entirety of the movie hinges on this kid's ability to deliver in that role.
No, you're
Like
right.
that's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. Like Home Alone, very, very specifically, because Macaulay Culkin literally has to carry scenes where he is alone. He can't
True.
act off anybody else. You can't
Yeah.
draw cues
Yeah.
from. He's got to
Yeah.
do it all. And I'm like, that's insane.
Yeah.
It's quite a performance, and it has stood the test of time.
Well,
Home
and
Alone is
I
amazing.
think you bring up a point though. With Home Alone, the sequel is let's take what worked in the first one and move it to a different setting, which is probably why Home Alone 2 holds up better than any of the other 5 Home Alone movies, right?
Yeah, I know. We talked about that one last year.
Not a fan. Not a
Yeah, I mean
fan.
it's tough. I mean, I don't want to go too much in on Home Alone specifically, but something that I just don't know how certain people are able to do it. But like, in Home Alone, Christopher Columbus, or even in A Christmas Story, like the actual filmmaking makes these rather kind of simple stories feel cinematic to me
Mm-hmm.
and almost worthy of seeing it on a big screen.
Yeah.
Where you think, I mean, Home Alone, if you actually think about it, I mean, that could very easily have been like a Disney Channel original.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're
But,
absolutely right.
and yet, instead of it becoming a Disney Channel original movie that everybody was like, oh, yeah, that was really fun, uh, it became like the highest grossing live action comedy of all time in its time,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I think has now been surpassed by like The Hangover or something.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's crazy.
So, and A Christmas Story is the same way, where like, I mean, it could have easily just, felt like you're just like, filming in someone's living room, but instead it
Mm-hmm.
feels very, I don't know. They capture a spirit about the movies, and I don't know how to do it. Otherwise, I'd be a famous filmmaker.
Good point. Very good point.
So I don't know.
I
Throw it
mean,
to
look,
you.
I think we both are under kind of the same impression here. This does, stand up. It's not as good as the original, and I don't think it would be. But I guess my question that I want to ask you is this: do you think that this has made the list of a reoccurring watch? I think that that's what it comes down to with a Christmas movie. Will you watch A Christmas Story Christmas next year?
I think here's how I would describe this. Did it make the list? If you're not a fan of A Christmas Story, probably not. But if you're a fan of A Christmas Story, I think it absolutely does. I
Okay.
think you will watch it again, and it has a lot of charm, and especially now, like we said at the beginning, when you watch them together, they really work well. And so I think if you're a fan of the original, absolutely, it's on the list.
Boom. There it is. It's on the list. And I think I have to agree with that.
So yeah, I just hopefully maybe who knows, because the original one, it took a few years before it really caught on. I mean, maybe it will stand on its own two legs and be incredible once it's aired 24/7 on like
TBS.
Christmas Eve. Yeah, something. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that does it for our movie remake time. You guys let us know what you think. Hopefully, you have had a chance to see it. If you haven't, we totally ruined it for you. But I think you can also still enjoy it having seen it, because I think it has a high rewatch quality. But if you have seen it, let us know. Do you think A, you like it more than the original, which to me seems unlikely, but possible. And B, doesn't make your list. And D, no, Buzz, what does he do? A, 2, and D?
Yeah. You got to ask your sister if she's going to watch this one. She's going to give this one a try.
All right, I'll ask her.
Just because she's the only person I know who hates A Christmas Story. So
I don't even know how that's possible.
Dude, I don't know. Maybe she didn't actually grow up in Indiana.
No, she did. I can vouch for it. She definitely did. Well, okay. So that takes us into our next topic. And now we're going to get a little bit more magical. So, we spent
magic,
like half this episode talking about Christmas Story and what it means to, create kind of a, nostalgic family Christmas in the real world. Well, now we're going magical. And I want to do a list this week where we take a look at movies featuring Santa Claus himself.
Okay. So, now, I need some clarification before we dive into this. When you say himself, you mean the actual Santa.
Yeah, not Billy Bob Thornton.
Okay, so Santa. This isn't like a mall Santa or like a Jim Belushi Santa.
It's not anybody who put on
someone impersonating like Santa. Like this is the actual
the Grinch
movie about the real Santa.
Yeah, Santa's got to be in.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
So I'm interested because I am going to give you a few movies because we talked about this before, and I think it's worth acknowledging more than because we'll just do our top 3. But there's a lot of actual movies that feature Santa Claus and some really famous ones. Obviously the Santa Claus. With Tim Allen.
Yeah.
I mentioned on my list when we kicked off the holiday season this year, Klaus.
Okay.
Which is, I think, is it a Spanish animated? I mean, it's in English, but well, anyway,
something like that.
But yeah, really, he's Santa Claus.
Okay.
You have Miracle on 34th Street, and then you have Santa in more supporting roles like maybe The Polar Express or Elf, where hey, he's in the movie, but he's not the central character. He's a supporting character.
Yeah.
Who are all of these actors that have played Santa Claus?
It's actually kind of crazy because when we start really, I mean, obviously there's tons of more obscure, there's Hallmark movies, there's old school movie, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians that, have had Santa. But when you look at the iconic Christmas movies, these are all like some of like the biggest actors in the world. I mean,
think it would be an honor to play Santa Claus.
Like Tom Hanks does it in Polar Express.
Yeah.
Richard Attenborough does it in Miracle on 34th Street. Mel Gibson does it in Fat Man.
Ed Asner, Elf.
Ed Asner does it in Elf.
Tim Allen. Who else? You just saw the movie last week. What was the
Violent Night with David Harbour?
David Harbour, yeah. I mean, that's a different take on Santa, but
Kurt Russell does Santa. It in the Christmas Chronicles.
Yeah, there's a lot of big
actors. Yeah.
So that's really what I just wanted to end the show, seeing who you think, did the best Santas. And I'm not talking about the actors. I'm talking about the movies in which they were played.
Okay. Ooh. All right. That's a lot.
You want me to go first?
No, I got it. I'll go first.
All right.
I'm going to steal your thunder here. Steal all the ones. I have an idea of who your number one's going to be, and so I will not take that. I'm going to go.
Thank you.
I'm going to go with number 3, and everyone knows I love this movie, and I can't really explain why. I'm going to go with Mel Gibson as Fat Man. In many ways, he portrays a Santa who is in line with all the magic that we know of Santa. Like one of the things that he does constantly through the film is when he sees a person, he knows their name, he knows their age, and he knows whether they're naughty or nice and what they wanted for Christmas. Like, he has all sorts of almost like pseudo superpowers that Santa has. Yet he's this gruff, cranky dude who gets in a gunfight. So different take on Santa, but I thought it was a lot of fun and very memorable.
Nice.
Number 2 for me is going to be Richard Attenborough as Santa in the remake of The Miracle on 34th Street. And that's just because.
Okay. That's the one I grew up on.
Yeah, right. As when we were kids, that was the movie that came out, and he has a quality that is so believable.
Well, and you know what's funny is they actually kind of acknowledge it in movie where don't they like pull him a state? They're like, hey, you'd be like a great Santa in the parade.
Yeah.
He kind of just naturally has it.
Yeah. He has like a charm, and everybody in the movie seems to acknowledge him as Santa.
I do hate when he gets upset though.
And he hits that dude with a cane.
Yeah. Oh man, that like I couldn't believe it. I mean, he couldn't believe it either. But yeah, that always upset me as a kid. I was like, oh my God, even Santa loses cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And then number one for me, I'm going to go with actually the other Miracle on 34th Street, Edmund Gwynn, because I think he's probably one of the most iconic Santas. I mean, when we look at Santa-based movies, the original Miracle on 34th Street from, 44, I mean, it's probably the first mainstream one I can really think of. On top of it, like, shout out to him, he actually won an Academy Award for the Best Supporting Actor for his portrayal of Santa. And I think, when we look at Christmas classics, I think kind of like It's a Wonderful Life and the original Miracle on 34th Street are kind of like as far back as we go for the most part as a society. So it's cool that almost, 80 years later, people still watch the movie where he portrays Santa. I think that's cool. So I'm going to list him as number one for that reason.
The OG.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have to give an honorable mention. And that's to the claymation, like Rudolph version of Santa. I know there's a voice actor, but there's not necessarily like an actor. But I mean, those were always a big part of my childhood. I remember there were like, when we were kids, there were specials and they would come on TV. It was like A Charlie Brown Christmas, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and then the like claymation Rudolph, and they had another one too, like with like the Abominable Snowman or whatever.
Yeah.
With that elf. Oh yeah, probably based on elf.
Yeah,
or that elf is based off of. And I don't know. I always loved those. I loved the imagery. It's something that always stuck with me. I mean, I could get into a side project about that type of stuff, but I won't. So that's my honorable mention. But number 3 on my list is going to be Elf. And that's actually partly a shout out to Ed Asner, who apparently has like played Santa a ton of times. I did not know that. This is what I know him from. But I actually thought he did a fantastic job in this movie playing Santa Claus. He's the one who kind of restores Buddy's faith in himself being an elf, but he's also really funny.
Yeah.
And, he just brings a certain quality to the character that I really loved his version. In a weird way, I kind of think I would prefer, like, if other movies were just going to have Santa Claus in them, he would be the guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not, just, insert here and he'll do a great job as Santa.
Well, if he's done it 8 times, that's probably what people have done,
Yeah, I liked him a lot. So number 2 on my list is a little different, but we're going to go with it. And that's Christmas Chronicles on Netflix. So I actually thought this movie was way more fun than I anticipated. I actually enjoyed this kind of grumpier version of Santa, Kurt Russell. He does look like Kurt Russell to me.
He doesn't have a line where he's like, why? Because I'm not a big fat slob.
Yeah, like he doesn't seem like Santa per se, but he is. Yeah. He's got all the right qualities. But I mean, other than my number 1 choice, is there like a more Santa-centric, series? Because now they've done like how many of those?
2
or 3? Yeah, they might have done 3 now. But I mean, I don't know. I thought the first one in particular was a really good kind of variation on Santa. Because obviously, like I said, Ed Asner is amazing. And it does feel like you can kind of, it'd be great if we could put him in each of these movies. I'm like, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah.
But still, you want a little bit of flavor. And I think Kurt Russell really brings that to the character, where I'm like, I haven't seen that Santa as Santa It worked well.
Fair
but
enough.
number one, as you mentioned, you know what it is. It's Tim Allen as the Santa Claus. And to me, that movie is incredibly endearing. It's the story about a father and son, and it does such a fun, twist on how someone becomes Santa Claus. What are the rules associated with being him? Like, I always love, they do so many fun things. Like, I love when he like starts putting on weight. He's like, does this look like a little weight to you?
Yeah.
And then he like goes into his board meeting in sweats, and he's like, I got stung by a bee. And then he ends up ordering food, and it's just like all the sweets.
Yeah.
And they're like, a bee, Scott? And he's like, it was a big bee. But more than that, I think it's the transformation of the Scott Calvin character into Santa Claus that really does it for me.
Yeah.
That by the end, he really does become the person. I think the scene that really sums it up for me is the one where he goes back to the little girl's house. The first year, he's like, I'm lactose intolerant.
You forgot to drink the milk.
Yeah. And this time he comes back and he's like, I did say that, and now he's like, Merry Christmas. And he's Santa.
Yeah.
And then they even actually get that moment when, he's literally in the living room. His ex-wife is like, he's Santa Claus. And he just kind of nailed it enough to get like 2 sequels and a show out of it.
Yeah.
So,
right. Pretty crazy.
Those have a totally different vibe. I don't think those work as well. So, I mean, it is a little dent on that, but I think the first one is just so strong and memorable that I don't know. I mean, that first night when they go and deliver presents is just so much fun. You're flying. Don't worry about it. I lived through the 60s. It's just, I don't know, classic movie. So that does it for the list this week. But I do want to throw it out to our listeners. I'm curious what you guys think. Who, is the best actor who's played Santa Claus? And then what are your favorite movies featuring the real big man himself, Santa? So that does it, CP. I hope you're excited because the holiday, Christmas Day, is coming up really quick.
I know, dude. I know.
And this always happens. It always makes me so sad. Like when I'm like, it's going to be over. And then you got to wait a whole year to do it again.
It comes so fast. And there's so many Christmas movies to watch. So many. And we've barely tapped into them. So
definitely. Well, to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to continue the conversations on social media, and you can find all of our links and everything at filmmakerscompass.com. You can follow me at Big Kid D-Man, and you can follow CP.
You can follow me at IndyCal5. Thank you for hanging out and talking about Christmas movies with us. Santa Claus, Christmas Story. All we're going to ask is that you keep watching movies, and we will see you back here next week.